Today I got a Yamaha KX670. This is a 3-head cassette deck that was brought in for service, and the complaint on this one is it doesn't work. Now, this one was brought to me with the top cover removed and the screws in a plastic bag, so the owner of this one has been into it. So I don't know what I'm going to discover until I get into it, but apparently it doesn't play, so let's see if we can get this one going. This is the first of a bunch of stuff that just came in. In fact, in the last couple days I've had eight pieces of equipment show up in the last couple of days. 5 today alone. Made a trip up to the post office to mail back a camcorder I fixed last week, and they brought out 5 boxes for me. It's like, wow, okay, I think I've got my work cut out for me. One or two of them, I think one of them might be a review, so that's got to get looked at. But I got a bunch of customer stuff come in to take a look at. This Yamaha tape deck was brought in from a client local, and he brought it in with the top off, saying it's got a problem. So let's investigate and see what is going on with this one. I got a couple of other decks from the same client, Nakamichi decks, that are gonna need belts more than likely, but I'll have to order them, so we'll do a video on them when I get to them. But I'll do the shooting of it, but I'm going to have to probably order parts in, which could be a couple weeks depending on where they got to come from. But let's look at this Yamaha first and see what's going on with it. This KX670 is obviously a 3-head deck. Let's remove the cassette door, or lid I should say, not the door, so I can observe what's going on. This one's got a cassette stabilizer, so I really can't even get my fingers in there on this one. Most of them, when you take the lid off, you can access it for cleaning. This one's got a cassette stabilizer in the way, so you can't really get in there. I just want to observe what's going on this one. So let me see if I can actually make the unit operate without a tape in. I think I'm going to have to activate some switches on here. So we have no capstan movement whatsoever. Fast forward works, rewind works, play, there's no movement of the capstans. Let's just check and see whether we have DC voltage for the capstan motor. This is the real motor here. This one, actually that one's like the loading motor that operates the mechanism. The real motor is here, and this one would be the capstan motor. Let's just see if we've got any power to the capstan motor. 13 volts, so the capstan motor has a problem. There's power, but nothing appears to spin. Now, what happens if I just try to nudge the flywheel a little bit? Will it turn? I can get my finger in here to nudge the flywheel. Okay, I just nudged the flywheel ever so slightly, and it's now turning. That's indicating probably a flat spot in the motor, which may or may not be repairable. Let's just see if the capstans are now turning. You can see them. If we look down through here, you can see that both capstans are now turning. So the motor itself was stuck. Now, it wasn't stuck like jammed. I just barely moved the flywheel at all, just enough to move the motor slightly. What's happened is the motor probably has a dead spot on either the stator or the brushes, and it was sitting on a dead spot. If I press the play button now, where's the switch here? See, now it's working. But if I stop it, there's a good chance that it's not going to start back up. There, you see, it's not starting. It stopped in that dead spot again. Okay, so it's not turning now. Now let's reach in here, let's give this thing ever slight a nudge, and you should see that flywheel will start to spin. And there it goes. Right? Power off. Will it start on its own, or won't it? Won't start on its own. See, and just give it just an ever so slight nudge. And there it goes. So this one has a bad motor. there's only really one thing that I can do, and that's take the motor apart and see whether it can be fixed. See whether it's just a worn brush that's causing it to stick. At this point, I'm not holding out a lot of hope for the motor. It's one of these little Matsushita motors from 1993. Some of them can be saved, some of them can't. So we'll take this one apart and see whether this one can be made to work. That's about all we can do, other than to try and find another motor. But again, trying to find one of these motors is like trying to find a needle in a haystack. They are quite hard to come by these days, and most of the ones you find out there are motors that have been pulled from other well-worn tape decks. Now I know someone might come up and say, well, you can get them out of China, and I realize that there are Chinese motors that you can get, and you typically have to buy, you know, a quantity. You don't just get one and twos. You have to buy a bunch of them. So the quality of them, though, I'm not so sure is that all that great. Certainly not what the original ones were. So 4 screws, and the mechanism should lift out of this one, I think. I might be wrong, might be needing more than that, but it should lift out. I may have to take the front panel off on this one. Something's holding it up, so I'm just going to remove the front bezel so I can inspect and see if there's any other screws that are holding the mechanism in place. And this bracket, I think, has to come off. What is holding that? It's just held on place by a couple of clips. Okay, bracket out of the way, front panel out of the way, mechanism now will lift out and unplugs over here and over here. Okay, now I can work on the mechanism out of the box. One thing to note with these Yamaha units is it's an LCD display that they use, so there's actually light bulbs here. There's a cavity around the back here which has incandescent bulbs in it which light up the meter. This was made after they got rid of the vacuum fluorescent displays, which everybody loved. They put on these LCD displays, but they tried to make them look like VFDs. So we'll just push that to the back. That way I can concentrate my efforts on the mechanism here. I need to remove the motor assembly, which is on this plate. It looks to be 4 screws holding it in place. And there's also the loading motor here, which operates a cam gear through this little belt. That'll come off as well. I think the idler comes off with it, if I'm not mistaken. But let's remove the 4 screws that hold the bracket in place. This is also, incidentally, the same procedure that one would use to change the belts on this one. Just go to a number 1 Phillips using my Pickwick multi-driver, best screwdriver I've ever owned. I've got a set of them. Oh, looks like the Purolator guy's here to pick up a package. That Nielsen meter that I was showing you the other day, that everyone said, oh, just bin it. Just bin the thing. Nobody will want it. Well, when I called the company up, apparently they did want it, because they just sent a courier over here to pick it up, and they paid the shipping. So obviously that little device is worth more than what many people would think it was worth, because as they say, it's gone now. Okay, there's the motor out. You can see it's got one belt that goes around the two flywheels. We're going to remove the screws that hold the motor, and actually I'm going to unsolder the wires first so I can pull the motor out. I want to pull this motor right apart, and we'll try it out. I can actually put power to it and see what it does without removing it from here. I can do that right now. Actually, it's a 12 volt motor, so if I turn on my 12 volt power supply and set it to 30 volts, just kidding, setting it to 12 volts. But if I put power to the motor should spin, but I know it's not going to, because, well, we've already tried it a couple times and it didn't spin. So there's power to the motor, and the motor is not spinning until I turn it. Now it goes. See, if we zoom in, we got a flat spot on here. Whether I can fix it or not, that I don't know. I'm not holding up much hope that it, see, the motor is stopped, and if I just give it a bit of a turn, oh, you see it pulse there, there it goes. It's got a dead spot. It might even have a dead coil, but we won't know until the motor itself is opened up. So let's just check that out. I'm going to take off the wires here, remove the motor, and then we'll pop it apart. First thing I got to do is remove the brass pulley, and the brass pulley is on pretty tight, so the way we remove that is we heat it up. Now I could use a heat gun, or I could use my soldering iron to do that. What we want to do is we just want to expand the pulley itself, the brass. The brass will expand at a faster rate than the steel. So once I get the actual brass portion heated up, I should be able to just use my side cutters as a way to pry it up. So we'll just heat it up for a while, make it nice and warm, and now it should just pop off like that. That's how you remove a stuck metal pulley. It comes off real easy when you do that, and yeah, it will be real hot when you heat it up too. So that removes a pulley just like that. Little tip for you guys that are wondering what to do. Don't do that with plastic, by the way. Here, you have a problem. We'll remove the solder from the ground here. I think I got that out of there. Okay, we popped the motor open by just prying it. I don't want to put any strain on the circuit board. I don't want to damage the board, so I'll just use my side cutters. Maybe we could open up a bit of the edge here. There's a place that we can get an edge of a screwdriver in and just give it a bit of a pop, a little bit of a pry, and it'll pop open, just like that, to reveal a circuit board and the rest of the motor. And now I should be able to push the motor through. There's a lot of debris inside this motor. There's been a lot of wear. Look at the dirt and the debris inside here. There's a lot of wear from internal. This coil is shot. Look at this. This motor is foobar. This one's never going to run again. Look at the shorts here. You see what's happened on this motor is I see what's happened on this. Somebody tried adjusting the speed on this one, and they put a screwdriver through that was too small, and they pushed the screwdriver right through the plastic. Let that be a warning when you're adjusting the speed of your tape decks. Normally the circuit board sits on top of the plastic here, but somebody's taken a screwdriver, something that's way too fine, and they pushed it down. This is actually too big. I find a smaller screwdriver so I can demonstrate this, because this motor has been damaged by the end user. Somebody has taken a screwdriver that is too small to adjust the speed. On the back here is your speed adjustment. You can see where someone has tried to adjust the speed. They put their screwdriver in, they pushed it so far that they actually pushed it right through, and actually pushed it through the plastic. You can see the plastic is damaged here. They went right into the motor coil, and they've buggered up the motor winding here. So there it is. You can see that motor was spinning and something metal hit it, and it's broken one of the windings. So now when the motor stops and that winding is energized, it's never going to start. You turn it a bit and kicks in one of the other coils, and the thing starts to run. So unfortunately, this one is a write-off. I'll have to let the guy that owns this know that this one here, we're going to have to find a new motor for this one. That's the only solution on this one, is the motor itself. It needs to be replaced, and that may mean finding another deck to rob one out of, but unfortunately this one is beyond repair. This motor itself. The tape deck itself probably works fine. We need to find a motor for it. So I'm going to throw this one back together, because this unit likely won't be repaired. The guy that owns it was, look at it and see whether you can fix it. Otherwise, it's going to be scrapped. So we'll just throw it back together, kind of reassemble it. I don't need to bother reconnecting the wires or anything for the motor, because it's not going to work. But we'll just kind of throw it together and put the motor back in, just so that none of the screws get lost, just in case, someday it's like, oh, well, maybe we can find a motor for it and get it going. I can just hear one of the experts on my channel now saying, well, you could rewind that motor. Yes, it could be rewound. Are you going to do that for 50 bucks or whatever I would make fixing one of these things? I don't think so. If you really wanted to rewind a motor, yes. Just for the trolls out there that are going to come up with that suggestion, yes, it could be rewound. But economically, no, it couldn't. There, okay. I'll throw this thing back together. I'm going to end this one pretty quick here, because I don't think you guys want to watch me putting this thing back together knowing that it's not going to work, but I will be just basically putting the screws back in. I'll put the plugs back in where they belong, at least most of them, but there's no point in really doing much else other than, it was brought to me in pieces. I'll put the actual cabinet screws back in it when I send it back out, but it's likely never to be repaired, this one. Let the owner know, and you know, if he wants to try and find a motor, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Anyway, I'm going to end this one now because there's really nothing much more for you guys to see. Thanks for watching.